say like I had all this childhood trauma or this horrible things happen to me, and that's not my truth. And for me, that was like a harder pill to swallow with some of the horrible decisions that I made for my life, because I had all of the tools to be successful, like college basketball. I played at Georgia Southern, made good grades, had supportive family, tore my meniscus in college, and that was kind of like my first introduction to the pain clinic. I also would be lying if I told you that I wasn't one of those people that was 0 to 100. I was going to be the best at everything I did, and that included the bars and the late nights, the very few that I had in between playing sports. So that introduction to the pain clinic quickly, very quickly turned into me getting through my pain medication within a day or two. Graduated college, got a good job straight out of college. I worked with the CDC. Again, just like almost living like a double life. I was this person in front of my family and my church community, but behind the scenes, I was buying dope. And I thought it was okay because my bills were paid on time, and I didn't fit the par. Little did I know that my life was going to end up in shambles. Fast forward, I was a full-blown heroin and methamphetamine addict. My family didn't trust me. I didn't have any friends, nobody that I surrounded myself with was any good. Lying, cheating, stealing, all of the things that comes in active addiction, and went to treatment many, many, many times. I could count on my hands and toes the amount of times that I overdosed. Lucky to be alive. And, it got so bad that I think I spent years of my life in psychosis. I was 10, 13. I can't even count how many times, at least 7, 8, maybe 9 times. I was a frequent flyer of Avita, Ridgeview, Laurelwood, if any of you guys have ever been places like that. Just a prisoner to the own life that I had created. And if that wasn't bad enough, it was only going to get worse. Everybody's rock bottom looks different, and my rock bottom was real bad. About the height of my addiction, I got pregnant. And, I was extremely malnourished, hadn't had a cycle in years, so I went to my first prenatal visit at 19 weeks, very far along, and heavily using. And we'll get there. It's a miracle that my child is as brilliant and amazing and beautiful that he is, but God, because that's not how it should happen. I got on a very high dose of methadone. Obviously continued, with my prenatal visits at that point, and gave birth to my firstborn child. And within hours, he was in withdrawal. You would have thought that would have been enough for me. My personal opinion, the gift of having a child and being a mother is the closest thing to the Lord on this earth, and that was the Holy Grail. So I was riddled in shame and guilt. Believe me, I was. It took me years to be able to stand in front of a crowd and stand 10 toes down on the person that I used to be. I was writing this up and trying to highlight what I was going to say, and it almost brought me to tears because I don't even know that person anymore. My life has changed so much. But anyways, he was put into NICU for about 2 weeks. They had him hooked up to all of these machines, and he was withdrawing. I did that. And in that period of time, God was like, hey, it's going to get worse. My car got repoed during that time that he was in NICU, and I remember waking up to my power being shut off, and these guys in hazmat outfits were storming through my townhome at the time, and I was being evicted. So everything that I owned, including all of my baby stuff, was being pulled out into the middle of the street, and here comes Hall County Sheriff. I had a warrant. So I went to jail. At the time I had joined family treatment court and, didn't show up for court or something, and so I had a warrant. And I went to jail like, I literally just had a baby. I went to jail in a diaper, withdrawing off of methadone. That was definitely my rock bottom. I meant to bring it with me, but I sat in there for around 45 days. And I remember DFACS coming to visit me while I was there, and they had a picture of my son and like slammed it up against the glass and asked me what I was fighting for, and I still drive around with that same picture in my mirror of my car because it just reminds me of how far I've come. And in that moment, you know, you could have told me to stand on my head and do the hokey pokey for the next 2 years. I would have done it. I was so done. I was so tired, and I was willing to do whatever was asked of me, but listen to myself and make decisions on my own. So I was OR bonded out to a women's program down in Rome, Georgia. I was sentenced to 6 months inpatient with the intention of bringing my child. It was a mommy and me program. I went down there. It was awful. It was definitely not near as nice as the program that you guys are in right now. I mean, this was before, you know, Marketplace was a thing, and, you know, it was a state-funded facility, and just, you guys are very lucky. You are at a very, very, very nice facility. I did not have the resources that you guys have today. And we got to the point that my son was supposed to come live with me, and I knew that God was changing my heart and something was different because I had every intention to bring him with me. And I remember I was in court via Zoom, and I looked at the judge and my son's guardian ad litem, and I said, absolutely not. He is not coming to live with me here. This is not what he needs. This is not a good place for him, and everything in my selfish being wants him with me, but he is in a safe place with my parents. He's going to the park, and he's going to church on Sunday, and my mom's pureeing his food. Why in the world would I bring him here? And that was really, really, really hard for me to do. Graduated that program, and you know, those of you that are familiar with treatment court, it's an 18-month program. It took me a little over 2 years to complete it. It's not easy. Got out, and I mean, I rented this dump of a house. It was like $500 a month, and I was working. Oh, I'll get here, but I got pregnant again. Yay. Got pregnant again. But anyway, so pregnant again, immediately out of rehab, in this dumpy house that I was barely able to afford. I was waiting tables at night and working the self-checkout at Kroger, and I want to emphasize on that because yes, I had 6 months sober, but like it wasn't just, life wasn't, I mean, like it was still hard. Life wasn't just going to hand over the keys for me to be successful because I made a couple right turns. I had spent over a decade of my life in active addiction, and it was a grind, especially in the beginning. And I made it, and I hope that me sharing your story that you will, and be inspired by that and just know that it is going to work out. But anyways, I remember getting fired from that stupid Kroger job because of my background check. I mean, are you kidding me? It was like I felt like I couldn't win, and but I if I could just stay sober one more day, and I kept doing what I was supposed to be doing. I was following all of the rules. Had a couple hiccups in between there. I think I went to jail for 7 days over a nicotine vape. But here nor there, it was the discipline that really made the difference for me. Showing up, doing the things that I didn't want to do because that is what I needed to do to change my life, right? I remember being terrified that I was going to give birth to my second child before my firstborn was home for good. That was like a big prayer of mine. I mean, I remember praying every night, like, God, please let this just be your will. And there were a lot of God moments in my story, but this is one that I do want to share. February 14th of 2022, my DFACS case was closed and my son was home for good. And February 24th, 2022, so just 10 days later, I gave birth to my second child. And that was just the beginning of like the upward trajectory of where my life was going at that point. Shortly after that, graduated treatment court, got my first job in treatment, and I'm talking like bottom of the totem pole. I was working at Mount Sinai as a tech, working 14-hour shifts. I had a 6-week-old and an 18-month-old. If you ask me how I did it, I don't know. I was just bound and determined to figure it out. Worked my way up from Mount Sinai, became an aftercare coordinator. And this date is very special to me, but October 6th of 2023, I had my first interview with Good Landing. And I knew there was something really special about this place. It being faith-based, I was super excited. The first person I called after the interview was my dad, and I was telling him, I was like, I feel like this is right. I feel like this is a place that my career can take off. And little did I know that was going to be the last conversation I ever had with my dad. Later that night, I got a phone call from my sister that I needed to head up to Athens to the hospital because in a drunken state, my dad got in the car and shot himself in the head, and he didn't make it. I think a lot of people in my life in that moment were terrified. I mean, my poor mother and my siblings called me multiple times a day for months, just checking on me, and I was fine. And I say I was fine. Like, obviously, still grieving, will forever grieve. I had the best dad. But if it weren't for the mentors, the community, the mindset, the relationship that I had with the Lord, you're right, I wouldn't have made it. But I did. And the craziest part about it is just, it's me now. It's me that my friends call for support. It's me that talks my siblings or my mom or somebody else off the ledge. And that's wild that I get to be that person for my friends and family today. Yeah. So, that's a little bit about, my story and a gist, but I also just want to share that January of this year was 6 years sober for me, and thank you. Thank you. Today I'm soccer mom, and I'm, signed up for PTA. My son starts kindergarten next year, and just last week I was at my kids' daycare reading books to the classroom because it was Parent Read Day, and I'm active in the kids' ministry, and I'm a beacon of light in my community. I have good friends today. I have a great job that I can take care of my family, and I don't walk around with a sticky note on my back that says I had an open defects case and my kid was born addicted to drugs. Like that, I don't have to be that person anymore. Am I afraid to share that story? Absolutely not. It's powerful and it needs to be shared. But I hope by me sharing that, that you can change your life too. It doesn't end here. Utilize this time that you're here. Please, it is so, so important. These 90 days is a drop in the bucket for the rest of your life. You've got resources within fingertips, and it is an opportunity of a lifetime. So thanks for letting me share. I don't know if anything.